till peace has come. We must love and live as one and be alive.
Shabbat Shalom. It's a story told of a town, one of these potentially fictional towns in Eastern Europe that we romanticize, that had the most perfect Shabbat. And so this rabbi went out to find out what was so perfect about their Shabbat. What on earth was this congregation doing that made every Shabbat so perfect? And he went and he knocked on all the doors, and nobody. They said, "We don't know. You know, that was a long time ago. We don't know what you're talking about." Until he finally found the oldest person in the town, and she told him everybody would be getting ready for Shabbat, and then the rabbi would come around and knock on their doors and say, "Have you done what you needed to do yet?" And they wouldn't always know. And he said, "Have you forgiven everybody that you needed to forgive this week? Because Shabbat can't be perfect until you've taken a moment to forgive everyone." So here we are on Shabbat Shuva, the one Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's our Shabbat to, in some ways, be no different than any other Shabbat. We come together, we sing. We're lucky to have a guest speaker this evening, but it is a Shabbat between our holidays during our 10 days of repentance, when, of all Shabbats, this should be one in which we make it perfect by making sure that we ask for forgiveness and forgive those who are in need of it. We'll begin by lighting our candles as we invite the couture up to lead us in our Shabbat blessings. We are in our Rosh Hashanah book, our Machzor, so please follow along. The page for the candle blessing is page 11.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who brings the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu
Because we're using our high holiday Machzor, there are just a few prayers that are not in the book. One of them is Lecha Dodi, and so we'll share Lecha Dodi, which is not in your pages. If you know the words, please sing them with us. If not, you'll catch on about halfway through. we face our entrance and we welcome Shabbat into our sanctuary.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובזכולה, תוכנו יהיה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה.
לך אדוני,
לך אדוני לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. The bottom of page 12. This is the season of hope. Like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn, our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice. This is the season of awe. When our eyes behold it, may we feel blessed. When we turn toward each other, let us feel strength. When we seek the holy, may we find purpose, may we find courage, and may we find love. Page 14, Shalom Aleichem, blessings that the good nature of this Shabbat, what we have been honored to have as a part of our life in this week, continues into the week to come.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elu, Mi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Luachem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elu. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruchuni l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 20, please rise as we face east and share the words of our Baruch Hu.
Baruch hu et Adonai, HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'id. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'id.
Page 23. The quickening of the moon calls us to return, and we gather, seam dwellers on the edge of the earth. As the sun lowers itself into the sea, introspection rises. A sliver cracks the heart of the firmament. The vast blackness an invitation to write ourselves anew. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Page 24.
Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta, otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbeinu v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nizmach v'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha leolam va'ed. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael.
Page 26.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad,
Baruch Shei Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart,
Page 28 if you want to follow along. 28.
with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, and when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy head. They shall be for frontness between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorpost of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
We turn to page 34 and 35. So often we look towards these words and we think of the great blessing of waters splitting, two walls of water, providing safety in these last 24 to 48 hours. We've, of course, seen the great destruction that can come when a wall of water is not a sign of safety, but rather a threat. Our thoughts and prayers are certainly with those we know and those we don't know in Florida. So too, we pray that in the coming days and weeks and months that the destruction that is experienced now, hopefully a silver lining can be found and it opens people up to a sense of blessing that perhaps would not have been as obvious prior. We would never wish tragedy to fall upon people, but when it comes, we hope that there is some sense of resolve and blessing that follows. These words at the top of page 35, which I don't believe we were able to share at Rosh Hashanah, I don't remember at least, speak to exactly that. The contrast in life of challenge followed by blessing. By walking, I found out where I was going. By intensely hating how to love. By loving whom and what to love. By grieving how to laugh from the belly. Out of infirmity I have built strength, out of untruth, truth. From hypocrisy I wove directness. Almost now I know who I am. Almost I have the boldness to be that man. Another step, and I shall be where I started from. We mimic that walk through the sea. Pray for the sea to provide safety. Page 34, Mi Chamocha. As the days get shorter, I believe we're now officially into more darkness than we have light by a few minutes. As the days get shorter in our house, that means that our kids are outside playing in the dark because at some point the TV has to go off and they have to do something. And so they play out in the cul-de-sac. I just bought them because it's so dark and they're playing kickball in pitch black in the street with the neighbors. So of course I just bought this whole series of flashing cones. We look like a construction zone when you pull into our street, and then the kids have little flashing bracelets that they wear. It's like a Christmas tree when you pull around the corner so you can see everything. But it's the contrast of the fear of darkness, of not being able to see what's in front of you, but also reminding ourselves of the joy that we can experience, especially in our kids, as they run around and play, as they experience the unknown. As we enter into these fall days, these shorter days of sunlight, we offer these words of prayer, page 36, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. May we find that even as darkness becomes greater in our world, that peace increases as well. 36.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim.
Ditches God wrong from right. Oh, Adonai. Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. Oh, Adonai. Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. Oh, Adonai.
Page 42. We rise.
Adonai sivatai tiftach uvia gita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava. Zochrenu l'chaim l'chafetz b'chaim, v'chodvenu b'sefer ha'chaim. V'chodvenu b'sefer ha'chaim, l'mancha Elohim chaim. Melech ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezra tzara. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol atah rav lahoshia, morid hatal, mechakel chayim b'chesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melech, melech mimidu mechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, michamocha el harachamim, zocher yetzurav l'chaim berachamim. V'neman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Please be seated. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. You are holy, your name is holy. Seekers of holiness, praise you on this day. Amen. Page 63, before we hear the words of Shalom Rav. In the name of the daybreak and the eyelids of morning and the wayfaring moon and the night when it departs, I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of wonder, as an architect of peace. In the name of the sun and its mirrors, and the day that embraces it, and the cloud veils drawn over it, and the uttermost night, the male and the female, the plants bursting with seed, and the crowning seasons of the firefly and the apple, I will honor all life, wherever and whatever form it may dwell, on earth my home, and in the mansions of the stars. Shalom Rav, page 66.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata melech adon lecha shalom. Ki ata melech adon lecha shalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarev et amcha Yisrael. Bechol tov v'chol shah bishlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Please take a moment for silent meditation. Oseh Shalom Bimroha, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'yakol Yisrael, Ve'yakol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru,
afraid to go back here.
Page 72 and 73. Actually, I might be wrong about that. So
Page 245.
Page 245. Different prayers of healing. Page 245. Look at all those prayers we just skipped over. We take a moment as we have offered our own personal prayers to offer our prayers for those who are in need of healing. Certainly those who are suffering in Florida at this moment are particularly in our thoughts and prayers, those around the world, and those whom we know personally. And so in the midst of our prayer, we'll invite you to share any names you'd like to share aloud of those who are in need of refuah shlema, of a full sense of themselves at this time.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
If there are names of people you'd like to mention, please share them as we look around the room. Is there somebody else? Yeah.
The Wainberg family.
And
Kathy
Sissy Hoffman.
Ryerson. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor Habracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Before we introduce our speaker for the evening, we want to invite Emilio up for a blessing. Emilio Block is about to leave after a couple brief delays for 2 years in South Africa with the Peace Corps. And so, tell us, what are you going to be doing? Tell them real quick.
I'm going to be working in public health projects, community health, focusing on HIV in rural parts of South Africa. It can really range for a lot of things, from HIV stigma and mitigation to access of medication, to really social determinants of health. So we really won't know until we get there, but I'm excited to go.
And the deal is, if we offer a blessing over Emilio now, he has to come back at the end and tell us about what he did for 2 years and bring pictures so that we can feel as though we at least went a little bit on the journey with you. Please rise as we'll offer Emilio a blessing in our ark. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu shtolichenu l'shalom v'tatzreinu lahagia limchoz chaftzenu l'chaim u'simcha u'shalom. May it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, that you lead Emilio in peace. Help him reach his destination safely, joyfully, peacefully. Protect him when he leaves and as he returns. May you bless the work of his hands. May his deeds merit honor for you and for all Israel. Praise to you, Adonai, protector of our people. Baruch atah Adonai, shomer Yisrael, la'ad. Amen. Safe travels. Please be seated. It's a great honor to once again, after a little bit of a hiatus, to have our Israeli shliach back. And I would say, I think it's fair to say that Rami, who's here, so Rami and his family, his wife Sally and Milo and Libby. Is that right? Am I close? No? Close. You want to correct me? You can. Milo. Mayo, with a yud. So, his family's here. But Rami landed in our lap 6 months ago for Yom HaAtzmaut, I believe, when we pulled together a Yom HaAtzmaut not long after Daniel had started, I believe, am I remembering correctly? And we were trying to get things going and trying to celebrate Israel on Yom HaAtzmaut, and Rami was more or less in the neighborhood, and he showed up and then he never left. And so we're thrilled that you and your family are here, and thrilled to be able to have you to speak with us as we're between our High Holy Days during these Yamim Noraim to give us a connection to Israel on Shabbat Shuva. So please share some words with us.
Okay. Can I? This is a little bit weird. What I want to talk about is why I am here, in terms of the way I see it. Why did I choose to come here? I think every shaliach has pretty much this same very vague job description to strengthen the connection between the Jewish community and Israel. But why do I want to do that? Why is that important to me, to strengthen that connection? So when we talk about the connection between Israel and the Jewish community and the American Jews, obviously there's a lot of political issues and a lot of interest. But I want to talk about what drives me personally to be here. So I think I need to go back a little bit, maybe more than 20 years ago, when I was in the Israeli army, serving as an officer, education officer. I couldn't be a combat soldier because I have one bad eye, but I wanted to contribute. I was a shinshin. You all know what that is, right? Like before the army, you take a year and you work in a youth group movement. You postpone the army. And I was already a counselor in a youth group movement, so I was in education, and it was very natural for me in the army to become an education officer. And once I finished, I was already 23 years old, and it was very natural for me to move on to the education world, and I was doing workshops for many nonprofit organizations. And in the army, at the last period of my service, I was training cadets to be officers. And as a civilian, I came back to the army for the officers' course. There was, every officers' course had, and I think still has, a week where you discuss Jewish identity. Now, a week is not enough, but it's also a lot. And I came back and I was giving those workshops to the cadets, talking to them about Jewish identity. And I would start with a question that I would define it as a very stupid question that needs a very smart answer. And I would ask them, why do you think we need the state of Israel? Why do we need it? I mean, you guys some of you are going to be fighters, officers, commanding soldiers. There's a price we're paying. Why do we need the state of Israel? And I'm going to describe what happened in the room almost each and every time, and I've done many of those workshops, almost each and every time, the first answers I would get would be, because we need a place for Jews to be safe, because of anti-Semitism, because we don't want another Holocaust. And if you get to know me a little bit, so you learn to know that I like to be a little difficult sometimes. And I also like everyone to love me, which is a little bit of a contradiction, but yeah, I like to be difficult sometimes. So I would make their lives very, very hard, give them a really, really hard time. And I would say a few things. So first of all, I would say, do you know that since Israel was founded as a country, 1948, until today, you know what's the worst place to be for a Jew in the world statistically in terms of safety? And they would think about it for a second. They would say, oh yeah, Israel is the worst place. Statistically, it's going to be, you're more likely to get hurt in Israel than any other place in the world. So maybe there's a problem there. What do you think? And then they would say, almost every time, they would say, well, but there's anti-Semitism. And I would say, okay, yes, there is, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. But let me ask you this. If, God forbid, the human race will evolve at a certain point, and we won't hate each other so much, if, God forbid, there's going to be peace in the world, do we still need Israel? Do we still need this country? Why is it important? And they would think about it a little bit, and then I'd be even more provocative, and I say, you know that today we have nuclear bombs, right? So what did we do? We take all the Jews, we put them in one place, make it easy for everyone. So is that the real answer? And then there's always going to be a guy that would stand and say, well, we also need a place for Jews to be Jews, a home for Jews, regardless of safety issues, regardless of anti-Semitism, regardless of the Holocaust. And I'd say, okay. And then I'd give him even a more hard time. I would say, okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean, a place for Jews to be Jews? What does that mean? What is the Jewish people? And they would say, it's a group that has this and that. And I say, okay, but the Jewish people, do they have, if you take everyone that you put under the definition of Jewish, can you please tell me, and I would be very annoying at this point, can you please tell me one thing that all those people have in common? One thing. So they would try. They would say, well, we have the same, some would say the same genes. I would say definitely not, absolutely not. Some share, we believe in God, absolutely not. There's a lot of Jews that don't, right? We practice halakha, no. We have, and then they would go to things that are more in terms of feelings. We have a certain connection, but how do you describe a connection? How can you even, a lot of people say, a lot of Jews say that they don't have a connection to this or that. That was a big problem. And then we started the week, and we had a week to figure this out. And that what I'm saying now, it wasn't just me giving them a hard time. What I did at this point is I took them back, actually, to a very, very big argument that we had in the Zionist movement. A very, very big dispute with two rivals, two intellectual rivals, both amazing people with a lot of influence. On the right corner, that's how you say it? On the right corner, we have Benjamin Zev Herzl, Theodor Herzl, right? The visionary of the Jewish state, right? You all know who that is, right? And on the left corner, we have Echad Ha'am, Asher Ginsburg, his greatest criticizer. And a lot of people don't know that about Herzl, but Herzl was mainly about the anti-Semitism. He wanted to solve that problem. And one of the most interesting things about Herzl is when he was young, for about a year or two, he really believed in the idea that Jews should assimilate and become Christian together. We should all make this big ceremony that all the Jews declare that they're going to become Christian. And then there's the famous Dreyfus trial in France, which a Jewish officer was accused, and Herzl was there as a reporter, and he heard the people when he was sentenced guilty. He heard the people shouting, "Death to the Jews." And he said, "Okay, that's not going to work. Yeah, that's not going to work. We can't assimilate. So we have to find a different problem for Jews to deal with the hatred." But coming back to what I had in the workshop, there's a problem here. There's a problem because, and what we call when we talk about identity, we can distinguish between what we can say positive identity and negative, not in the terms of good and bad, like when you take a photo, there's film, there's a negative. So the negative would be, who am I not, right? Inclusive and exclusive. Who doesn't want me? Who doesn't like me? What do I not want to be? And the positive, the inclusive, is who am I? Who do I have something in common with? What am I, regardless of whoever hates me? So if we're sitting here in this room, and on the next room next to us, there's another group, right? And they're saying, we don't like those people here in Temple Israel. We don't like them. I mean, that's okay. We can talk about that, and maybe for a while we can unite over that. But does that mean that I have something in common with you? Maybe. Maybe yes, maybe no. But Herzl was very driven by that, and he founded the Zionist Congress, right? 1997, the Zionist movement, Zionist Congress was founded, and that was one of Herzl's biggest achievements. And probably some of you know the history. 6 years later, 903, there was the Sixth Congress when Herzl coming to the Congress and putting on the table an offer for Jews to establish a temporary state in Uganda. Because Herzl said, hey, we're dying here. We need to find a solution for that. And then the amazing thing happened. The big objectors to that offer were actually the Russians that had just came from the Kishinev pogrom. And they were crying, and Herzl won the vote. But they were crying, and they were so emotional, and they were discussing leaving the Zionist movement, and Herzl kind of changed his mind at the end, and nothing came out of it. And a year later, 1904, Herzl died. On the first Congress, 1997, where Herzl founded the movement, there was a young intellectual called Echad Ha'am. And Echad Ha'am came to the Congress, and he described it. He was very, very good with words, and he described it. I was a mourner amongst grooms. Everyone was so happy and excited about this Zionist movement, but I was mourning. Why was he mourning? Because Echad Ha'am said, listen, we're solving the wrong problem. Anti-Semitism is a big problem. And this is what what Echad Ha'am called, Tzarat HaYehudim, the problem of the Jews. There's a different problem where he thought was much, much more important for us to address. And that is the problem, Tzarat HaYahadut, the problem of Judaism. That's a bigger problem. He said, you know what? Anti-Semitism is the problem of the individuals. Because each one of us has a choice. We can convert. We don't have to stay Jewish. We can stop being Jewish, find a place that is safer, and probably solve our own problem. This is not our problem as a people. This is a problem of the individuals, separately. It's their security. It's not a spiritual problem. But the problem of Judaism is for us to solve together. Now, what was he addressing? He was addressing what we call the Big Bang of Judaism in the 18th, 19th century, where you have, I'm not going to elaborate a lot about that, but you have a Jewish community, the shtetl, that was a very closed community with everyone being religious, everyone abiding the Jewish law in the mid-ages. And that community met with a bunch of historical events that happened, like emancipation, the fact that Jews can get out of the shtetl and work somewhere else, the Industrial Revolution, nationalism, all different values that are suddenly get the focus like the human in the center and not the God. The whole world was changing and becoming less religious, and suddenly there's a new animal, people that are secular, and the Jewish community, the shtetl, is meeting with all those historical things that happen, and there's a big bang. And one of the results of this big bang is what we're doing here today, is the Reform movement. The Reform movement was created, correct me if I'm wrong, to give an answer to that challenge. How does a Jew deal with this new era that's coming? And they give an answer. And the Orthodox movement is also a movement. One of the false claims is that the Orthodox is it's the same that was all along, but it's not the same, because once you have a house and you have a small fence surrounding your house, and you maybe if the Reform wanted to make more holes in the fence and be closer to the outside world, the Orthodox, they build a bigger fence. That's also a change. That's not the same. And the conservatives, after that, to see how, with their point of view, how we can maybe keep the halakha, but also adapt to the changes. And there's also a secular Jew, a Jew that doesn't belong to any of those. He considers himself a Jew, but he doesn't belong to any of those. And Zionism was an answer for many, for their identity. Who am I as a Jew? I am the Jew that wants a Jewish state. And the argument between Herzl and Echad Ha'am, the Echad Ha'am said, we are focusing on the wrong thing. We don't need a Jewish state. This argument is not exactly like it was today, but it still lives in so many ways. Echad Ha'am said, you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen to you, to us? We're going to come to Israel. We're going to deal with taxes. We're going to deal with an army. We're going to deal with government, with bureaucracy. We're going to deal with all those things that are going to take the focus out of the real problem. Who are we today spiritually? We do not need, and he was criticizing Herzl, we do not need more politicians in the Jewish, for the Jewish people, advocating and running around. We need prophets. We need people to show us the light in terms of our values, in terms of what we believe in. Echad Ha'am was an Orthodox Hasidic that became secular. And he was determined. He spent his life trying to figure this out. What is the new Jewish identity that we can all gather around? And this argument lives today too. Because it is not enough for us to say, I'm saying this as an educator. It's not enough for us to say, yeah, let's gather up everyone together and tell them that it's important to be a Jew because of anti-Semitism or because other people hate us. Who are we regardless of that? And that's also a problem in Israel, by the way. We send our kids to Poland every year. Some people. So let me tell you about the workshops again. So I would ask at a certain point, I would ask the soldiers, where was the time where you felt Jewish? So an Orthodox would say at shul, holidays, at home, the secular officer, the secular soldier would usually say, when I went to Poland. So you need to go to Poland and visit the camps to feel Jewish. In my view, that's a problem. That's a problem. And how do we figure out who we are together at this point? If this is a building where every generation adds a new floor, so we have the Bible, we have the Mishnah, the Talmud, we have the Rambam, we have the Reform movement, every generation, what is our floor? What do we add to the table right now? How do we continue a dialogue between what we had in the past and we create something new that is relevant for everybody in the future? And this was Echad Am's question. And this is a question that I personally think is very important. And coming back to what I started to say, why am I here? I am here because I believe that the dialogue between Israel and the Jewish communities in the US is good in terms of, can promote us to have this discussion, to answer those questions. Who are we in the positive sense? Because Israel, Echad Am, was wrong in a sense. Because when you think about taxes or bureaucracy or the army, you can incorporate Jewish values over there too. Who are we when we decide what taxes should the government give the citizen? Who are we as Jews? That's also a Jewish question. Who are we when we treat how we treat our enemies? Who are we, how we treat immigrants, illegal immigrants maybe, that come to the country as Jews? You know, Jabotinsky, which was, you can say, if you had to have if Herzl and Echad Am, the big rivals, would have a kid, it would probably be something close to Jabotinsky. Jabotinsky said, yeah, Herzl is right. Anti-Semitism is a big problem, is a big, big issue. But also, Echad Am was right. And we have to address the problem of Judaism. And I think a Jewish state, that's what Jabotinsky said, I think a Jewish state could be a solution to that also, because we can take our Jewish values and see how we test them in a modern state. You know, intellectually, a lot of times when you want to test your ideology, you have to ask, what if everyone was like this? Right? So I'm a pacifist. Okay, fine. But you want to create a pacifist country? What if everyone was like this? And Israel, as a state, helps us examine our values in everyday government, state. Every day we examine our values in many, many different aspects. So Israel is important in that sense, not only as a place where we can maybe save less or more, but it's important in that sense. But the Jewish communities and the states are also important. And I think that we, me personally, and we have a lot to learn from you. That's why I think the dialogue is good. For instance, when I just came here to the community, there was a festival, a Jewish family festival. And we had, it was in the Orthodox synagogue, Revere Road, and suddenly I come and I see there's a booth for the Reform synagogue inside the Orthodox festival. And I'm like, what is this? We don't have that in Israel. That is crazy, the fact that this exists here. And I thought it was beautiful. And I thought this is something I, as an Israeli, can learn from. And there's a lot of things happening here because of the challenges that you're facing. Your answers to who are we as Jews are a little bit different. And I would like, as an Israeli, for me and my friends to learn from that too. Everyone in this room, I am sure, I'm positive, has someone in their family, friends, that made a choice to not be Jewish. We don't have that in Israel. In Israel, she's just very excited of everything I say. We don't have that in Israel. In Israel, those officers that I talk to, those cadets that are going to maybe sacrifice their lives for this country, they maybe sometimes, we maybe sometimes take it for granted. You made a choice to come here. That's not an obvious choice. You made a choice to come here today and be a part of this shul. It's not an obvious choice. You wake up in the morning and you make a choice. We are already Israelis. We're there. And because you make a choice, we can learn from you. And I'll tell you, when I was doing those workshops, I was once also in an organization that made it his ideology to talk about Judaism and get secular Jews and religious Jews in the same room and talk about Judaism. And it was mostly run by Orthodox Jews, modern Orthodox. And at a certain point, I kind of got ahead, and they liked me a lot. And they invited me to be part of the educational board, making the decisions about the programs, and I was kind of a program director. And my last note at this organization, I told you I can be a little bit difficult, right? Did I say that? So my last note was when we had a meeting, and we were talking about a educational program for bar mitzvahs in schools, in secular schools. And I said, you know, I think we should probably mention, we don't have to do a whole segment about it, but we should probably mention that in other places in the world, maybe a minority in Israel, but in other places in the world, girls read from the Torah too. And that was the last time I was invited to those meetings. And the guy, one of my friends there, he's very liberal and Orthodox, but very liberal. He said, you know what, Rami, we're not there yet. Maybe in 100 years we'll get there. But here in the United States, there's a big reform movement. And I'm not saying we have to agree about everything, but I think what you're offering is important for us to answer the question together. What is this floor that we're going to build this generation? What are we going to create? What is going to be our Judaism? And what are we leaving for the next generation? So I believe in this dialogue, and I think it's good for both sides. So that's why I'm here. And thank you for having me.
Get the right book. We return to our prayer books. Thank you, Rami. We look forward to many, many more times when we can have you with us. Rami's going to be working with our teens and in our religious school as well, and connecting them with Israel on a regular basis. And this will not be the last time that we get to see him here and build our connection as well. Page 82 in our prayer books. Please rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekedir l'liatzev reshit, shelo asani kegoyei haratzut, ve'lo asam שמות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל העולם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחררים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Page 88. To everything there is a season, a time for everything under the sun, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to laugh and a time to cry, a time to dance and a time to mourn, a time to seek and a time to let go. This is the time we remember those who gave meaning to our lives. This is the time we remember the bonds that tied us together, the love that we shared, and the memories that remain with us still. This week, we continue to remember those that we've lost in these recent days: Maxine Levy, Judith Sif Dittman, and Rhoda Migdal. We add to their names those that we remember at this season: Jack Backer, Marlene Baker, Parley Coburn, Elaine Cohn, Robert Crossland, Louis Culliner, Martin Fearer, Cecile Gelberd, Stuart Guerin, Frank Hillelson, Jenny Crackover, Jeffrey Landis, Andrea Lego, Mel Mermelstein, Donald Meerman, Eleanor Newman, Norman Noble, Lynn Priest, Israel Reven, Lena Reven, Joseph Reisman, William Rubenstein, I. Salem, Edward Schulman, Fred Siegel, Fanny Sischerman, Ida Sokol, Max Trope, Maurice Whitelaw, Kenneth Wolf, Laura Wolf, and Robert Woolman. If there are names you'd like to add to our list or names I mispronounced, please share them. We rise, page 90. We share the words of Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai echon uvyom echon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala uvizman kari vimru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu, Le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Having connected with those that we've loved and lost, we connect with each other as we bless each other with the words of the priests. May God bless you and keep you. May God's presence be with you and be gracious unto you. May we always find in our connections with each other the presence of the divine, something holy and sacred, and may that bring us peace.
Amen.
Remain standing as we invite the co-tours to lift our Kiddush cup and lead us in Kiddush and Motzi.
The heaven and the earth were finished
in all their array. On
the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing. God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho b'yahavo v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemasi bereishit, ki hu yom tefillah למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Chaim. If you'll uncover the challah, we'll say Motzi together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Be seated for a couple brief announcements, and then we'll close with the words Shana Tova.
Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. First off, I want to thank the Keturahs for helping us with our service tonight and blessing us with your presence and grace. Also want to thank the Feinstein and Rami specific family. Shlichim, you know, to me it's multiple. One of the things also, if you remember, Israel was created in 1948. Next year is 75 years. You'll be hearing a lot more about that as a Jewish community. A couple of brief announcements. Join us in the Sukkah for Sukkot starting October 9th. We will have activities all week long. There's a flyer out in the lobby or on your email for more details. Every night and a couple of lunches and so forth. Grocery bags and donation envelopes for our annual Akron-Canton Food Bank Yom Kippur Food Bank donation drive are available, so please participate. We want to break our record. There's still a lot of need in our greater community. The deadline to register for Yom Kippur services is this coming Monday. You must register in advance, so please do so. It was great to see so many people here for Rosh Hashanah, and because it's been kind of like a 2-year hiatus. So please come in person. Rami, you're coming from Israel, and Daniel, I wish you luck and best wishes for your trip to Israel in the next week or so. Also want to thank Noah and Eli. Is this Eli's last? Next week, Eli is moving to Atlanta, and next week will be his last service with us. So thank Eli individually. Shabbat Shalom, and a happy and healthy and peaceful 5783.
L'shana tova tikatevu, l'shana tova tikatevu, a good year, a year of peace, we wish to you. Shana tova,
Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom.
Sorry? Yeah.